Welcome to the Growth Buyer Podcast, where we engage with top business leaders who share their experiences and provide real insights that help them attract customers, retain staff, and grow their bottom line. Now, let's get started with the show. Hi there. My name is Marc Reifenrath. I am the CEO of Spinutech and the host of A Culture Starts With You. This is a podcast all about culture and core values. We want to talk about, debate, challenge each other on these views, and just help everybody get better every day. This episode is brought to you by Spinutech. Spinutech is an all-digital agency with a talented team of experts that help drive leads for your business. We help you accomplish your business goals and drive results to help your business grow. To learn more, go to spinutech.com. That's spinutech.com. Today, I have Chad Franzen here of Rise25, who has done hundreds of interviews with successful entrepreneurs and CEOs. And we have flipped the script, and he will be interviewing me today. Hi, Chad, and welcome.
Hey, thanks so much, Mark. Great to be here. How are you doing today?
Excellent. Yourself?
Good, thank you. Hey, let's talk a little bit about Spinutech. You are one of the founders. Tell me why you started the company.
Great question. So the year was 2000. I was a junior in college, super qualified to start a business. And it was really more out of a necessity, I would say, of the dot-com bubble was bursting and jobs just weren't as readily available. So it was really intended to be a resume builder and slowly kind of blossomed into an actual business. That happened pretty quick, but the original intent was honestly a resume builder to make myself stand out and do something different than my competition at the time, which was my classmates.
So you were a junior in college. Was this like part of an assignment, or did you come up with the idea, to start a company on your own?
On our own. So I started with, there was a friend from college, and then a childhood friend that went to the same college, University of Northern Iowa, and kind of put ourselves together and said, I've been building some websites for friends and family. So let's maybe do that together, make it look a little more formal. And from there, it kind of, it had, with a lot of, nose to the ground and grinding, hustling, whatever you want to call it, actually turned into a business.
How did you come up with the idea for this business then?
So we're an all digital agency today, really good at lead generation, very sophisticated digital marketing. Initially, though, in 2000, it was only web dev design. So we actually built our own content management system when we started, which today that's a very well-known thing. Most people understand what that means. In 2000, nobody had an idea what content. We had to explain it. We traveled around with a big old heavy projector to, do demos and stuff. And now that's just kind of an expectation of any website. So the idea was really doing something different. We believe we were one of the first ones to build our own CMS within the state of Iowa and maybe a little bit beyond. So that was our differentiating factor, which being very young and inexperienced, we needed that. So the idea was really kind of try to gain some experience and survive a little bit. There weren't incubators, there weren't a lot of resources for entrepreneurs at that time, at least where we were. We didn't take any outside funding. So it was just all that hustle and grit and grind constantly until we actually did make it turn into something. Every dollar we made in the beginning, we reinvested into the company. So we didn't pay ourselves for the first couple of years. Which that was easy to do in college. You don't have a lot of expenses. That would be much harder to do, as you progress in life. But the timing was right. And I would say the idea kind of evolved too, because it wasn't intended to be a long-term thing. But then you have a little bit of success. Then a bigger idea starts to formulate of this would be kind of cool if we could actually do this. And that really started to motivate us to turn it into a business.
This is called Culture Starts With You. What when you founded this as a junior in college, were you thinking about that you would contribute to the company in terms of building the culture at the time?
No, I don't think we thought about or knew what culture was from a company's perspective or a corporate perspective until almost 2008. We were subconsciously doing things. We always had this attitude of we just want to create a business where we wanted to work at, where we were happy at, where we were having fun, and so it was pretty much a direct reflection of our personalities, I would say. But in 2008-ish, I'll say we went to South by Southwest, heard all these really passionate speakers, and some of them started to talk about culture and things they were doing in their organizations. And we just started to ask ourselves, well, why do we do this way? Why do we do that way? We were dressing business casual, and there would be days and weeks where we didn't have anybody in the office that really needed to see us dress that way. Well, let's wear jeans and whatever that we're comfortable in. That was way before Zoom calls and all that stuff. So we just started to challenge things and rethink a little bit. And I would say that was when the culture started to get a little bit more formalized and intentional. And from that point forward, every year we started to do things that made it more sticky, more lived. And I always say you can't fake culture. It has to be a lived culture. Nobody wants to be a part of a fake culture. So ours is very much a living, breathing thing. And the team really owns that. I'm the shepherd of it, but it really evolved over time and just kind of came more formalized, not formal, but formalized in the sense that we were tending to it and making sure that it was headed in a positive direction.
How did you kind of become the guy who's in charge of helping, but kind of shepherding the culture, as you said? Is it something you've always been kind of interested in, or have you really developed a strong interest in it? Since that time that you started thinking about it intentionally.
Yeah, I've never thought of it that way. If it was something that I've always been passionate about, because I mean, being on sports teams and stuff, I guess those all had their own cultures, but I don't know that things were talked about in that sense in the 90s and early 2000s of culture in companies. At least I wasn't aware of it. So it wasn't intentional in that regard. I think it slowly became a passion of, we wanted to have the best environment, the best company, the best team members, the best talent. And the way you do that is with culture. And so it was probably a byproduct of wanting all those things that made me really start to say, we've got to focus on culture. We've got to really make this loud and proud and the best that it can be. And it's an evolving thing that we want to make better every year. And so I would say it's a passion that has just kind of been a fire that's slowly gotten bigger and bigger.
During the time that you've kind of started to focus on it, is there anything that you didn't realize you weren't focusing on that maybe it could often be overlooked in terms of building a culture that has been, very positive for you?
Yeah, I would say, and this is just kind of the nature of being a smaller company growing into a bigger company. When we were 15, 20 people, 30 people, 50 people, the onboarding process was in a Google Doc that had maybe 10 light items. And basically it was a schedule of, you're going to meet a few different people and they're going to tell you about what they do and how you might be involved in that. Whereas today, it's a very strict and prescriptive. Here's your first 100 days. Here's who you're talking to and at what point. We're going to survey you every 15 days. There's very intentional steps of that first 100 days to make it as impactful as possible. And my view on that is, we're trying to inject the DNA of our culture and core values into each new team member as quickly as possible. And so that formula is proving to work very well to get people started on the right foot, have a really great energy as they enter our workforce and become a team member. And it's, it's the first 100 days, but I would almost append the first, the interview process to that, because that's when that tone actually starts to get set. They get their laptop and their swag and all their stuff before day one, so they can literally hit day one being, a proud team member. And a great compliment we've gotten from a few people, but this was said really well recently. I do a 6-month check-in with every new team member and just, how's it going? Have we met your expectations? Is there anything we said in the interview process or onboarding that has been different than what I think the reality is? And, getting that feedback. And this one gentleman said, you talk about work-life balance and all these great things that Spinutech cares about in the interview process. And I was like, yeah. That's what everybody says, though. But then I found myself doing an onboarding of another new team member that I was doing a meet and greet with. And I was telling them all the things that you guys and other people talked about in the interview process. And it clicked with me like, oh my gosh, this is real. Like, it's actually all like, I'm selling it or not even selling, sharing it. And it's real. And he's like, that was that full circle moment for me, where the interview process where I maybe had some of those doubts and questions of sure to nope, this is who we are. And he's like, that was a really proud moment of me realizing that it is a lived culture and core values for sure.
Tell me a little bit then about who you guys are and what makes your culture and core values unique or attractive or maybe even unattractive to clients or potential employees.
Yeah. I think one, you have to know who you are, and we do not hide from who we are. So we're a culture of high accountability that delivers great results. But some people don't want, that level of accountability and to have to be pushed maybe to that level. So, I always tell people we don't want a yes, we want a hell yes before you start here. And it's a very simple approach of you're all in. So our culture, we are not ego driven. We're team players. We do the right thing. We're lifelong learners. It's a very much a team mentality. We're not ladder climbers. So in the interview process, we're trying to weed out anybody who has an ego or a bit of arrogance. One of our core values is we over me, not me over everybody else, right? So if we sense any of those things, we're gonna get you out of that process pretty quickly. And honestly, we should both celebrate that because our culture will absolutely chew people up and spit them out if they're misaligned with one of those core values. So there's a simple approach that we take, if we hire, fire, lead, manage, and solve problems using our core values. It's a very simple formula that I think can apply to any business if you do have a lived set of core values. And so the interview process for both clients and team members is trying to ensure that we're aligned with those, because if we're not, we know there's going to be a problem in the future. And we shouldn't be ashamed of that. And we should celebrate when we recognize that and basically eliminate a future problem from occurring.
How did you guys come up with your core values? And do you mind summarizing them for us just so we can get a feel for what they are?
Absolutely. So similar to our culture, we didn't even know we had our core values. We didn't formalize those for quite a while. One of our team members, he gave a great compliment in the sense he said, when I think about our core values, he said they've only gotten louder over time. And what he was meaning is they've always been there, whether they're written or not. And we probably had 8 of them in the past, and we've slowly shrunk those down to 4. And so the 4 of those are today, we get better every day. And that's that lifelong learner mentality. You come to do great work with others. We do the right thing. We do the right thing even when nobody's looking, even if it's the hard thing to do. We over me. That's the ego thing, the arrogance. It's I'm a team player. I'm not worried about myself. And then we own it. We own our wins. We own our failures. I think that's super important to own your failures as well. But we're going to own that work, and back to this transparency thing. So I would say the theme of those is accountability, curiosity. We like to ask why often is baked into a lot of those too. But we, those are lived. They're in our Slack channel. That's how people, when they give shout outs, they're going to say, Chad did a great job with such and such client. He really showed we over me, or he really showed we own it. And then they explain why. In our monthly all teams, same thing. When we're giving shout outs, people are listing core values aligned with the feedback. So that's it's a way that proves that our core values are lived, not just on a wall or on a website, on a piece of paper, talked about in onboarding and then never really thought about. Again, we hire, fire, lead, manage, and solve problems using our core values. And so that's a way to live those core values.
So when people live those core values, what kind of effect does that have on the culture?
I think it's super powerful. It's one of those metrics that's probably really hard to measure, but if you have that alignment, I have a saying at Spinutech, this won't mean anything to you, but to somebody who's been here and is ingrained in it, they know exactly what I'm saying. We do that. Let's do that the Spinutech way. That's all I have to say. Now, there might be small interpretations of what that means for different scenarios, but generally speaking, it's in a band of tolerance that we would all be okay with. And that's because I know who we are. I know the way that we think and how we would think about that thing. And so doing it the Spinutech way it's kind of a universal statement that applies to a lot of different situations for team members, but they would know exactly what I'm saying when I said that to them.
Okay. Do you think that culture is a competitive advantage when it comes to attracting clients?
I use a competitive advantage for clients. It's a competitive advantage for team members. It's just plain and simple from my perspective, absolutely a competitive advantage. Do you want to work with a team that is in unison, knows who they are, knows what success looks like, the way that they do it, versus somebody kind of being a chameleon to adapt to who you are as a client? If you're not a match culturally for us as a client, we will walk away. We have separated relationships with existing clients because we've been misaligned, and that's become apparent. We just know we're not going to be successful. It's not good for either party if there's a misalignment there. So when you do have that alignment, I do think you're going to work together. Communication is going to be easier. When there is a mistake, which will happen. That's going to be easier to talk through and work through. And we're all going to get better for it. And that ultimately builds a stronger partnership so that we can both win.
What would you say is it about your core values or your culture that might cause a client to not be a good fit? Has there been an example in the past, like, they don't agree with us on this core value or this way of working or something?
I think almost all of those they've really come down to the way that they would look at us, the way that they would treat our team. So they're not thinking of us as equals or, we're just their vendor. I'm going to tell you what to do and you're going to do it mentality. We have a lot of super talented individuals. And a lot of times our clients don't know what they're actually asking for. And the way that we will collectively get the greatness to come out of all that is when we're not afraid to push and challenge and ask those clients to go deeper or to do that. Whereas if they want to just call us and say, do this exactly as I say, that's just not really the way that we feel is going to be the most successful for both of us. And we've got to own that, and that's okay. That may be the relationship that they need to have with their agency, but we know where we have had a ton of success with our clients, and that's when we do truly collaborate. We get to know each other's personalities, really dig deep, and you can accomplish some amazing results when you get to that level.
So tell me a little bit about your podcast. It's about culture and core values. Can you tell me more?
Yeah. So really, like I said in the intro, we like to talk about why it's important to you as a leader. What's your journey been? I had a few odds and ends jobs in college, and I witnessed in retrospect some really bad cultures and really bad leadership. And so I think it's always interesting to understand from a leader, what points do they care about? What things have they failed at? What has worked? What they're super passionate about? We all have our sayings or our go-tos in this area, but I think every great leader, this has been a piece of the formula. And I just want to help share those stories. To say that the culture we've built is all on my shoulders or anybody's would be a lie. It's a little bit of this person's, a little bit of that person's, and so if I can shed a little bit of light, pull those stories to the front for other leaders to inject into their cultures and make them a little bit better from that's really what we're going for. And so try to bring you, a good group of leaders that have proven success and share their stories on what they care about from a culture and core values perspective.
Who do you think would most benefit from listening to it? I'm guessing other leaders too.
Absolutely. I think anybody in the C-suite, if you're leading people, no matter the size of your organization, I think there's always culture. And even at the bigger the organization, sometimes there's subsets of cultures, which is okay. And so I think I'm a lifelong learner. So I think any leader that has that same mentality, hearing different perspectives. Abraham Lincoln has an amazing saying or quote that he had, I don't like that view, but I want to learn more about it. There may be things that we talk about on here that you would disagree with, but I think it's important to understand why you disagree with it. That'll maybe make you more passionate about why you would or wouldn't do something in your culture. So any leader, it's absolutely going to be a valuable podcast to listen to.
Okay. Sounds good. Hey, it sounds very interesting, and I'll look forward to listening to future episodes. I really appreciate you allowing me to join you today, Mark. Thanks so much. It's great talking to you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chad.
Thank you. So long, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Growth Fire podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.